Welcome back. Documentary film. It's my jam. What can I say? This next film that we're going to talk a little bit about, of course, has a very, very well-known entry point, but the examination of a fascinating human being goes far beyond the tagline of the film. It's called No No, a documentary of Doc Ellis, the famous pitcher, and here to chat about their film, director Jeffrey Radice and producers Chris Cortez and Mike Blizzard. Hi, fellas.
Hello.
Hey,
Thank you for coming. I guess I'll just start with something light, and that is, was it just tremendous fun to make this documentary? Other than the incredible amount of work. I guess I meant for the subject.
You know, there were parts that were tremendous fun. Going to Pittsburgh and interviewing all of these former Pirates and getting to meet Vera Clemente and
wow.
Going out to LA and meeting Doc's family and his lifelong friends. That part of it was fun, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Incredibly rewarding. I mean, Vera Clemente hugged me. It's really the highlight of the whole thing. It's like if nothing else, that happened, you know?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Talk about the logistical side of making this film, because one of the things I really am fascinated by filmmakers and documentary filmmakers especially is that I imagine there's always kind of a jigsaw puzzle of how much is enough archival footage, what's available that's, you know, Sports Center or whatever the predecessor of that was versus doing the interviews today and getting that information. What was that like logistically for this particular film?
Well, I'll talk to you about one piece that kind of fell into place, which was all of these home movies that we got from Doc's second wife, Austine. She had, I think, about 20 reels of Super 8 home movies that she and he had shot over the course of maybe about 10 years. And once we got those, that really like opened up the possibilities for what we could do in the film, and it allowed us to, you know, intercut that with the interviews that we had shot and some of the other archival pieces. Another major component of the film are the graphics, the motion graphics that we're using, that make up, you know, probably about a third, maybe 25 to 30% of the movie.
Yeah, in Doc's era, they didn't film every game. Yep. And so many of these incidents that he was involved in, whether it was beating the Red, you know, all the Cincinnati Reds or whatever, but we had to use original artwork and graphics and sort of fun, inventive ways to portray that.
Talk about this, I would imagine a transition in terms of going through the filmmaking process of, and I'm sure you guys probably knew a lot more about Doc Ellis, which is why you wanted to make the film in the first place, but, right, Doc Ellis, no-hitter, on drugs, colorful guy. Talk about the transition and the experience you guys had of getting to know him better through the film and getting beyond just that sort of that hyperbole of he did that.
Well, I think one of the most primary pieces of source material that we had to draw from is his biography, written by Donald Hall, who was a poet, later on became the 14th Poet Laureate of the United States.
Wow.
And so it's an extremely well-written book, gave a lot of background about the first half of Doc's life. And being a public figure and in the spotlight as an athlete, he, you know, there were a lot of news stories written about him and articles, but what was interesting is once his career was over and he moved on to the second half of his life where he was a drug counselor, he was much less in the spotlight, and we needed to rely much more on primary interviews with people, other counselors that knew him, some of the people that he counseled and turned their lives around. So it was kind of like a two-part thing. The first half of his life was very well documented, and the second half was much less so.
Yeah, sort of the in and out of the spotlight phases of his life. He was very much in the spotlight. When you're a major league player, you're starting the All-Star game in the World Series. There's lots of material about that, but then, you know, he spent more time as a drug counselor he did in professional baseball. But there's much less reporting of that. He's working in the California correctional system for a large chunk of that time, helping at-risk youth and prison inmates. They didn't know him as you know, Doc Ellis, the baseball player, they knew him as the guy that was helping them.
I think for us that also meant there was a lot of discovery in that part of it, because in the first half there were things that we knew about, and there were certainly surprises to us as we went through the filmmaking process. But in the second half, it was really digging the story out of, like Jeff said, all these primary interviews, and we learned things that we didn't know before, and that I think even some of Doc's closest friends will be surprised by or really, you know, interested in when they see the film too. And
I'm going to guess that I think there's kind of a stereotype that you hear a story like that, this guy is a famous, high-achieving, drug-taking, colorful guy during this relatively short period of his life where he's on the big stage, and that then when he goes into the second phase of his life, that's somehow less interesting, or he was less interesting as a person. And I'm guessing that you'd probably say no, not at all. He was just as compelling of a person because of who he was, not because he was really good at throwing a baseball.
Yeah, I would think if you look at, you know, I try to speak of Doc in terms of legend and legacy, and his legend is all these things that he did in the public eye, but his legacy is all of these people that he helped turn their lives around and you know, counseled, and some of these guys attribute being alive, if not being out of prison, to Doc Ellis primarily. So I mean, it was really rewarding to get that.
People that knew him before and after roundly told us that he was the same Doc Ellis after he became sober as he was before. He was just as outspoken, he was just as sort of hardcore and in your face, and it was tough for a lot of people who had partied with him all those years to then get the doc that's telling them how that they need to change their lives. And I think he didn't let up on people. He was pretty tough.
It was like his lifestyle changed, but his personality didn't.
And I'd imagine that that's a wonderful thing to discover, is that it wasn't drugs that made him interesting. He was a fascinating guy who happened to have taken a lot of drugs, but he was still just as fascinating if you remove all of the mind-altering substances.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most interesting things about Doc is the people that he surrounded himself with. You know, he had a lot of excellent individuals that are fascinating in their own right, who he became friends with. His agent, Tom Rich, one of the first sports agents, fascinating character. Ron Howard directed Doc Ellis in the movie Gung Ho. They became friends.
No kidding.
Yeah.
We interviewed Ron. Yeah, he's great.
I can't wait to see this film. How's the run at Sundance? Are you guys having a great time? How's the reception? I'm sure there must be a lot of smiles and a lot of, wow, what an experience to meet that guy through your film.
Yeah, you know, since we're not premiering until Monday, it's kind of
I see. I'm sorry, I didn't realize the schedule. We got you before the premiere?
Yes.
They told us it was an exclusive.
Yeah. But we seem to be the only people passing out buttons, and we have created the fashion rage with these buttons. We've passed out 300 of these things hand to hand. Ethan Hawke was sporting one last night.
You guys are so retro chic. Buttons, I mean, that's
yeah,
like,
there you go. Hey, it's a film mostly in the 70s.
Viral marketing.
Right. Yeah.
In 2014.
We tweet too. At Dockumentary with a CK, by the way.
Fantastic. Nicely done. You're on all platforms. You guys are. What about Instagram? All the cool kids are Instagramming.
You know.
Well,
hashtag just say no. Kidding.
Hashtag just say no. There you have it. Fantastic. Guys, thank you for being here. It's really been a pleasure to chat with you. Congratulations on being at the Sundance Film Festival. I think I can say that's pretty kick-ass on this program. They can edit it out later. Mostly, thank you for being here. We appreciate it and have a wonderful time.
Great. We're glad to be here.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
Thanks.
Excellent. The film is No, a documentary. The filmmakers, Jeffrey Radice, producers Chris Cortez and Mike Blizzard. We'll be right back after this.